everybody. We're back with episode 2 of Divinely Beautiful and Dazzlingly Clever, which I will spell correctly in the graphic this week. She had to very slowly explain to me how to spell dazzlingly.
It was tricky. I said it aloud in the kitchen by myself to make sure I had it. And just a keystroke difference.
It's very I was really close, but I didn't get it right.
But going forward,
that from now on it will be spelled correctly.
Mm-hmm.
So this week we're going to talk about escapist reads, because there's been a lot of news consumption the last couple weeks.
Lots of refreshing of phones.
Yeah.
So late nights.
Yeah. So, it's over and we're going to talk about some, this news cycle is over, so we're going to talk about some escapist reads.
Yeah.
Do you want to go first?
Sure, I will. Okay. So we're going to start with, so not necessarily this book, but the family that this book belongs in. I read The Hazelwood as the advanced reader's copy before it was published. I loved it immediately. I told everyone about it. Mm-hmm. Magnificent. The second book in the series, The Night Country, came out in January. And the companion to these two is coming out in January 2021 called Tales of the Hinterlands. And I don't know if you've read it.
I've read this.
You've read this?
Half of it.
Beautiful.
Very good.
Kind of spooky. Very Brothers Grimm-y, plus a little Alice in Wonderland, about this teenage girl, actually named Alice, and her grandmother wrote this famous storybook collection, Tales from the Hinterlands, and it's taken on this cult status. No one has a full copy of the book. Strange things happen to people around the book. And her mother, Alice's mother, doesn't want her to have anything to do with her grandmother, with this legacy, and Alice is dying to know why until her mother goes missing. And a boy in her class who adores the book and wants to know more about it decides to go on a road trip with her as they try to figure out the sinister happenings behind Tales from the Hinterland. And I can't give too much away about the Night Country without telling too much about the Hazelwood, but the adventure continues. It is just as good as the first one. And then Tales from the Hinterland is coming out January next year. It is the collection of stories that you only see snippets of in here.
Oh, neat.
It is beautiful. It is very spooky. It is a perfect read for you if you like your YA, your fantasy with a little more bite to it. I thought of this as Narnia's kind of punk grown-up cousin. Mm-hmm. So some happy endings, some not so happy endings, but altogether I had a marvelous time reading this one, every other one that came in the series, and I'm looking forward to more people getting to know the series.
It reminds me of No Flying in the House. Did you ever read that?
No.
I loved it. It's about, it's I think 50 years old at this point. It's about like a girl who finds out she's half fairy.
Yes,
yeah.
I love it.
Yeah, it's very good.
I love it.
Similar, like isolated from that side of the family.
Mm-hmm. Oh, I love a discovery origin story situation.
Oh, I always used to fantasize about like finding a cursed medallion. I wanted to find a cursed medallion so badly to send me on a quest.
We've been set up to believe in cursed medallions from the books we read.
Yeah.
I have yet to find one and have that adventure.
I've never even seen like a non-cursed medallion, I think.
That's true. I'm not swimming in medallions, people, but I'd love to be.
Yeah.
One day.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's The Hazelwood by Melissa Albert, and Night Country is the sequel, and the companion is out January 2021.
Soon.
Yeah, very soon.
Yeah.
Maybe
pre-order now.
A late Christmas present, a New Year's present, a Festivus.
A Festivus present.
A Festivus gift. Yes.
So I'm going to talk about much like last week, 2 books by the same author, or 2 weeks ago, I guess. Casey McQuiston, I love her. The first book of hers, which came out, I think, last year, is Red, White, and Royal Blue, and I loved it. You loved it. You read it, and in the middle of it, you texted me, you're like, you have to read this immediately.
Yes.
And I did. I read it on a plane. It is about the fictional, it takes place in a fully fictional America and England, where the totally different monarchy than we know, totally different presidency than we know, all false, but within the framework that is real. And it's about the first son and the Prince of England they meet and they don't like each other, and then maybe they do like each other, and it is so fun. If you like a rom-com, if you like YA but you want something a little like more mature, this is a really good, it bridges sort of the gap between YA and adult. Some call it new adult, which is not a super well used term, but it is like what they've applied to this book. But it transcends genres. It's just a really fun rom-com. You can read it really quickly, but it's kind of long. I just like ate it up. It's like candy.
Yes.
And you should get it immediately and read it if you haven't. I don't have my copy because I just lent it to someone because I'm always trying to get people to read it. And then her new book comes out next June 1st, I think. Either end of May, early June next year. So pre-order now, kind of early. But I also loved that one. And it is about a girl who just moved to New York. And she meets this girl on the subway. And she has a crush on her. But for some reason, she never sees her outside of the subway. And she also is only ever on this one subway car. And it sort of veers into speculative a little bit. But it is also a rom-com, and it is a little meatier than Red, White, and Royal Blue, but I loved it.
Right, because the author said on social media that Red, White, and Royal Blue was like candy, and then this was a little...
One Last Stop is what it's called.
A little meatier.
She said like an egg sandwich, I think. Like a breakfast sandwich.
Yum. Both are delicious, both different moods.
And the thing, I loved both for different reasons. I could recommend her up and down. And from now on, I'll always read whatever she puts out. But the first one very much is, I think, even more escapist for me, Red, White, and Royal Blue, because it takes place like I'm not related to the president. I'm not royalty. No. That's totally outside of the realm of my world. But then the new one is much more, I mean, it's just like young people living in the city, hanging out. That one feels more like grounded, I think. But I love both. I would still consider both escapist because you've got like a time loop Groundhog Day situation happening. So it's still not real. It's still definitely escapist, definitely a rom-com, a lighter read. I could recommend either any day. Get Red, White, and Royal Blue now because it's out if you haven't read it. And then, get ready for her next one in June.
Prepare yourself.
I can't wait to talk to people about it.
I'm excited for you. I'm excited for all these future readers.
I know, me too. What's your next one?
Oh, jeepers. All right. We're going to do... This is Hench. This is... I loved. This is a debut novel by Natalie Zena Walshot. Speaking of origin stories, if Hazelwood is about fairy tale origins, where do these stories come from? What lessons are we learning from them? This is a straight up superhero or supervillain origin story. It was very funny. It was very surprisingly intense at parts, but I flew through it. It's not a small book, but I just tore through it. And it's about this woman, Anna, who works in tech. And in this world, superheroes and supervillains are just a part of the fabric of everyday life. They're on the news. They're, it's like living in Gotham. So, you might run into a supervillain on your way to work. You'll probably see a superhero like flying through the sky. So Anna actually works for a supervillain. She does like data entry, and she is involved in an altercation with Super Collider, who is the Superman of this universe. He can do no wrong, except he does do wrong. And Anna is horribly injured by Super Collider. She's collateral damage in this showdown between him and this villain. And she's shocked by it. She's mad, she's afraid, she's everything she thought she knew about superheroes isn't quite true because she's a good person, but this horrible thing happened to her and no one is taking responsibility for it. So she escapes into data, into numbers, which is where she feels powerful, and she starts running the numbers. And it turns out superheroes are more of a menace to society than even like a freeze ray gun. That the amount of damage that they inflict is just catastrophic. So she starts posting this online, trying to see if other people have survived something like this, and that gets her noticed by Leviathan, who is the Lex Luthor to Superman, the most evil man, and he offers her a high-powered job at his company, and he asks her to help him find dirt on superheroes to try and take down Super Collider, who is his greatest nemesis. And the further Anna goes, the more she learns about Super Collider and Leviathan, the more she learns about the mysterious corporation who's behind both of them. She kind of forms a ragtag group of friends who are taking on this kind of dog-eat-dog superhero world. I never thought data analysis could be this fascinating, but it is. And I know that sounds terribly dry, but she is like I'm going to keep going with a different superhero analogy. She's kind of like Alfred, running everything behind the scenes. She knows it all. She's found the trail. She's going to figure this out. I tore through it. What a delight. So if you've been watching some Marvel movies recently, or some DC movies to escape what's happening in the world, but you want something a little different, then maybe Hench is a good pick for you. And it came out this fall, so it's on sale now, and I highly recommend.
It sounds like it's got like Dr. Horrible's sing-along blog, The Boys vibes.
Very much so.
Yeah.
Very much so. Though, I love that it's centered by a female character.
Yeah.
She's not the girlfriend. She's not the secondary character. She's kind of running her own show, and I appreciate it. I love it.
Week 2, a theme with us is women.
We love a theme. We love women. It works out well.
Switching gears completely.
Right, there's no way to segue into this.
No, there isn't.
I'm sorry. So
Hard
just
sell. Not a hard sell.
Record scratch. We'll jump over.
So I'll explain my choice. If Not Winter is Fragments of Sappho, the ancient Greek poet, translated by Anne Carson. And I understand that sounds incredibly dry and boring, but here's the thing.
Stay with us.
So Sappho, she lived around in the I'm reading the back to get the date right, but she lived in like the 600s BC in Greece, and we have very few of her poems. We have like 2 full poems. I think it's 2. Only one in its entirety is still around. So what this book does is it's translations we have tons and tons of fragments though, just like pieces of paper with parts of a poem, and you can see where there was supposed to be stuff. And what Anne Carson, who I love, she's a great translator, she's a classicist, and I also love her own stuff that she's written. I have an Anne Carson tattoo. I'm not going to show it to you. And
beautiful tattoo.
Thank you. You can check out my Instagram and try to find it. But what she does, which I think is brilliant and really effective, is it has the parts of the poem that we have, and then she does brackets to show where there would have been other words. So she uses the empty space incredibly effectively, that it still feels like you're reading a full poem. Also, something that I think keeps people from reading poetry is that it's confusing and hard and a lot of symbolism and thought, and it takes work. And because their full poem isn't there, that work is kind of taken out of it, because you're not going to understand it. Like, you don't have to make an effort towards understanding the symbolism, because you probably won't, just because it's not there. It's it's a fun way to just like lose yourself in the language, and they're so short. I read this in like 45 minutes, and that's probably an exaggeration, but it went very quickly because it is very short. But you could spend more time on it and just like look at it and sit with it. And there's like a glossary in the back, and there's more information about Sappho and Anne Carson in the book. And so it does sound weird to recommend ancient Greek poetry for escapism, but I stand by it because it is just like really beautiful, lush language that has no bearing on our current lives, but also tons of bearing on our current life because of like emotionally. Yeah. But it's a totally disconnected from like modern problems, and I don't know. It has the ancient Greek on the left, if that interests you. It doesn't. Me, I can't speak ancient Greek, but if you do, have I got the book for you. I consider it escapist. If you don't, that's okay, but I personally recommend it, and I think anyone could get something out of it.
My next book, unfortunately, I don't have it sitting here with me. It is back home in Michigan. But it is believe it was published in 2013. It is still one of my favorite reads. I still like flipping through it when I am home. And it's called The Ghost Bride by Yang C. Chu. And it's set in 1890s colonial Malaysia, which I knew very little about. An incredibly lush and interesting, and a crossroads of these, colonial powers and China and all of these different cultures coming together. And it's a story of a young woman named Li Lan, and she's fallen on hard times. Her family has fallen on hard times, and she gets a proposal of marriage from a very powerful, very wealthy family. This is amazing news for her family because their financial ruin will finally be reversed, except her fiance is already dead. And this was a actual practice where women would marry into families with dead husbands, but her future would be secured because she's a part of that family. But you would kind of live your life as a widow and a bride simultaneously.
Interesting.
So for her, not a great choice, not a great option. She doesn't want to live in that halfway space for the rest of her life, but she starts being haunted by the ghost of this fiance who is telling her that the boy she does like, who is her cousin, was responsible in his murder. So a lot to process. Yeah. And sooner rather than later, she accidentally slips into this spirit world, halfway between living, halfway between dead, and it just takes off from there. It is Spirited Away vibes. It is even like, I already said Alice in Wonderland, but that's my version of escapism, so we're just going to keep rolling with it. She runs into so many characters, some of them good, some of them evil. The detail is gorgeous, and she's going through this other realm trying to solve this murder to try and get back home. She's trying to avoid her fiance. She's trying to get back to her family. She meets friends. She meets foes. Lovely read. Still one of my favorites. I found out recently that Netflix made it into a series. It's available now. I think it dropped earlier this year, but a lot has happened this year, so I kind of missed it at the time. But I definitely think I'm due for a watch of it. So if historical fantasy is your jam, as I mentioned last time around, if Gollum and the Genie's your vibe, if Lisa C's books appeal to you, it's such a cool period of history that I knew so little about, and combine that with the folklore, just a real treat. And despite the title, it's not so much scary as fantastical, because it's not at all the way we would, think of ghosts. There's no running around in sheets, Charlie Brown style. It is entirely distinct, entirely different, and still one of my faves. I remember I tore through it, and I think my copy is now just, folded up and maybe like a bit waterlogged, and I loved it so much. I read it all times a year, anytime I needed to pick me up, a little escape.
Perfect. Yeah. My next book is also waterlogged because I had it in my bag in the rain. Anyway, this is Wow No Thank You by Samantha Irby. Samantha Irby is great. I loved her first book of essays, Meaty. I actually didn't read her second one, which was We Are Never Meeting in Real Life, I think. But I remember we sold a ton of them at BTC. So this is her newest one. Samantha Irby is this is her newest book of essays. It's a little sedaris-y. They're so funny. It's just about her life. And Meaty has some sadness to it because it talks about she had a difficult childhood and she has IBS, which she talks a lot about, but she's so funny when she talks about it that you are sad, but mostly it's funny. It's very, you know who it's like? It's like Jenny Lawson.
Oh, okay.
Don't you think?
Okay.
I don't know. You read Meaty, right?
I did read Meaty. You recommended it, and I read it, and it was wonderful. It does have some very sad moments in it.
Yes, it does.
But she is just effervescent. So charming and funny.
So charming and funny. She writes for the TV show Shrill, so if you like that show, you might also like this. I don't know what more I can say. It's just because each essay is self-contained. Her earlier books were more about young adulthood. This, she's now 40, she's married, she's got a lot of her earlier books were about, like, hustling, and she had, like, 3 jobs, and just, like, being a young person trying to figure out her life. I know she, like, didn't go to college or didn't finish college. I don't remember, but it was, like, about that kind of thing. This is much different problems just because she's, like, a married adult with a steady job, and so it's more, like, stories about how she hates going out now, and just the whole, like, her description of a night out is so good, because it's just, like, she's mad that there's no food, and then she's like, I can't believe I put on these pants, and it's like...
This is me now.
I know.
in the before times, this is me now.
Right, we don't go anywhere now.
Yeah.
I don't know, I loved it. She's from the Midwest.
Woohoo!
This calls her
Chicago.
a cheese
Chicago?
fry... I think Chicago. Yeah. This calls her a cheese fry eating, slightly damp Midwestern person with neck pain and no cartilage in her knees who still hides past due bills under her pillow. Which is, I think we can all relate to.
What a great description.
I know. That's how I had to read it.
What a well-rounded description of someone.
So there's no plot to this, obviously, so there's not a ton I can say about the contents, but it's just incredibly funny. If you just want sort of a light... fun, if you just want to laugh. If you like David Sedaris, but you've already read all of his, or if you liked Jenny Lawson, that's exactly who I would comp this to. So those are our recommendations for escapism. We also just wanted to, like, list some recommendations. I highly recommend revisiting childhood favorites. I've read The Secret Garden probably 20 times.
Yes.
That a great escapist technique is to just read a book you liked when you were, like, 9.
Yeah.
I read, like, some picture books the other day at work just because I was like, I wonder if I still like Tar Beach. I do.
I still like Tar Beach.
Or I highly recommend just, like, seeing what's in YA if you're, like, an adult. There's a lot of really fun, cool stuff in YA that is sometimes as complex as an adult book, but it might just be, like, a little easier on your brain. Like, We Were Liars is great. Aristotle and Dante, Bone Gap. I mean, just go to the YA section, ask whoever's
Look
working.
around. Maybe you'll see one of our recs in there.
Staff picks.
No, that's one of the reasons why I still love and I still avidly read young adult is because the pacing and the characters are so bright and compelling because YA books are never the full length of an adult novel. No. We have very limited space. We got to get moving. We're writing to a different audience who's reading for plot. They're reading for some action. They're reading for those, like, really big emotions. So a great place to delve into. Just check out your young adult section.
I love nothing more than, like, laying outside for 6 hours and reading an entire YA book.
Yeah, of course.
That's the best thing you can do with your day.
Absolutely.
I also highly recommend Something to Talk About by Marilyn Wilsner, and a book that comes out next week, Rachel Bloom's memoir, very similar vein to this. Incredibly funny. If you liked, I think I have it. Yeah, I do. Great cover. And if you liked Crazy Ex-Girlfriend, she wrote and created that show with her writing partner. And it's just incredibly funny memoir if you like a comedian's memoir. I recommend it.
Yeah.
You got any final recs?
Oh, man. Kind of going off of the young adult vein, just another blurb. It doesn't need any more, it really doesn't need any more recommendations, but we all love it so much. Lumberjanes.
I love Lumberjanes.
By Noelle Stevenson. And it's just a delight. The illustration is gorgeous. It is so funny. It is a graphic novel series about a summer camp that is unlike any other summer camp you will read. It is wonderful. If you are a streaming person, maybe you want to check out She-Ra and the Princesses of Power, which is on Netflix. I watched it from the beginning. It ended this year in like March, April. It was a binge watch for me. It is so much fun. It is a revamp of the 1980s version. Wonderful voice cast, so much fun. I fell in love with the characters. You can tell Noelle Stevenson is behind it because these characters are just, they're so lovable and so empathetic and funny and like cotton candy for your eyeballs. Just a treat.
The thing about Lumberjanes I love, and this is a void I'm always looking to fill, is I love, like, movies about gangs of children. Like, I love Goonies and It and Stranger Things and, like, all that stuff.
Stand By Me.
Stand By Me is, exactly. Love a gang of children. And most gang of children movies are all boys or all boys, one girl. Yeah. And Lumberjanes is all girls, mostly girls. Mm-hmm. So that's just like a fun, and I love the boy ones too, but this is like a fun departure from that. You're a girl or a boy that likes that kind of fare. Those are all our recommendations for this
folks.
week.
Yeah.
Until next time, we have been and always are
divinely beautiful and dazzlingly clever.
Bye. Folks. What if I ended every episode with an impression of Porky Pig?
That would be so brave.
I don't even have one. I just decided to threaten that.